Welcome to EdUp Curriculum. I am your host, Nicole Poff. I know I always say I'm excited about today's guest, but I'm really excited because we have someone from San Francisco Bay University back today. Our first episode, part one, was a huge hit. San Francisco Bay, if you haven't listened to that one, listen to that one first. They're doing awesome, awesome things. Their approach is just radically different. And so I'm excited today to talk to Dr. Bradley Fuster. Dr. Bradley Fuster, thank you so much for being here. Before we begin, can you share just a little bit more about yourself with our audience?
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, Nicole. Great to be with you. I'm Brad Fuster. I started my life as a music professor, and music was my academic discipline. All three of my degrees are in music, specifically percussion performance. I played with orchestras all over the world and recorded, and became a music professor, and then sort of gradually got kicked upstairs, became an interim department chair, then a music department chair. I started my career at Montana State. And then in 1999 was my first tenure track teaching position in the late 1900s, as my children say. Um, and then in 2005, went to SUNY Buffalo State University as music department chair, then through a string of interim positions, eventually landing as a vice president. And then went to Keuka College, which is a small private liberal arts school in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, as provost for the last 6 years. And then for the last year at San Francisco Bay University as provost. The opportunity to come here has really been amazing. I know we're going to dive into it today. San Francisco Bay is really a startup university located in the heart of Silicon Valley. And it's a really kind of a once in a career opportunity to get to start a university from scratch and to kind of really examine everything that higher education is doing and decide these things are working and we want to continue down that path at San Francisco Bay. And these things are really not working and not serving students and higher education as well as they might. And so we want to do something intentionally different. And that is a daily conversation in the hallways here.
I love that, and I think you're right that most people don't have that luxury to kind of reinvent something from the ground up. So many are just operating within really old systems. Band-aid here, Band-aid there, duct tape here, just trying to make it all work with what they have available to them. So you guys are very unique and just awesome. I think everyone that I talk to there is just this, I can't even pinpoint the difference of people that I talk to. I mean, egos, there's no egos, let me say that. There's no egos. The student truly, 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 truly is at the center of the conversations. The market around you guys, I mean, it's truly inspiring. So I just said truly a lot. So you guys position yourself as a challenger brand. Like when you and I talked, this was something that was important to you. So what does this mean and what does it look like in practice?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So a challenger brand, I hadn't heard that term, as a music professor. If you're a marketing person, if you're in marketing or business, you might know what a challenger brand is. Most people don't. A challenger in higher ed is an organization who's intentionally trying to disrupt the current business model. And they're not necessarily trying to be the biggest in that vertical, but they're trying to serve market share that is either unserved or underserved by the current model. And so an example of that we could all relate to would be like Airbnb isn't trying to be Marriott, right? They're not trying to they're not hosting conferences, travel, for example, and they're not trying to be this large footprint. They're trying to say, you know what, some people prefer to rent a house or a cabin and don't want to stay in a Marriott, and we can serve them. Or Uber disrupting the taxi industry, or even Southwest Airlines, for example. Although I hear some of that's changing at Southwest. you can pick out your seat and all the seats are the same, and bags fly free,
Mhm.
all of those types of policies that none of the other airline giants are doing. Um, so we view ourselves like that, as that kind of disruptive presence in higher ed, where we want to offer students a great experience. We put them at the center, as you've said. Our tuition is very, very low, about $10,000, and then we discount in most cases around 80% of that, and in some cases up to 100% of that. Classes are capped at 20. We don't have tenure. There's so many things that we've decided to do at SFBU that are just a markedly different pathway than traditional higher ed, which, as you said, there's a ton of institutional inertia in higher ed. In some cases, we've been doing things that we've been doing for hundreds of years, while the world has radically changed, is shifting underneath our feet. We continue to deliver the same type of core curriculum. We continue to deliver the same type of coming of age experience for the 18-year-old who goes away to the beautiful bucolic campus on a lake or on a hill somewhere. And that's not necessarily the skills that students need to be armed with to compete in in 2025. So we're examining all of that and deciding to challenge the typical experience in higher ed. The other thing I want to say is that right now the Department of Education is a huge topic of conversation, and federal funding and federal support for higher ed and the structure of what that looks like. And while just personally my politics don't necessarily align perfectly with what's happening, higher ed does need to take a hard look at itself here. And this is a kind of a moment of reckoning. Higher ed has had traditionally pretty poor outcomes. About 50% of the students who enter higher ed leave with no degree and debt. And so you wouldn't get on an airplane that 50% of the time took your money and left you stranded somewhere, or you wouldn't check into a hospital that 50% of the patients died and they charged you a lot of money for that experience. So that's what's happening in higher ed. And, shame on us as an industry if we don't kind of take this moment to say, we can do better, and we should examine our structures and policies and procedures to try and serve students as well as we can.
Absolutely. There's so much in that. But I completely agree that it feels like this is the time. It feels like for a lot of us, we've been living in this world of like, we need to change, and our voices are just getting louder and louder and louder. And it feels like we are now seeing kind of some validation behind this of we need to change, and people are looking of like, okay, what do we do differently? Whereas before it was just like, we're just gonna keep doing the same things the same way. Um, Now you guys have we talked about this before. We talked about this with Ansar as well. Um, Legacy items that traditional colleges preserve and fight for. You guys don't really have those legacy items that you have to either dismantle, right? You're not trying to convince faculty to dismantle some of these legacy items. You guys kind of get to choose what stays and what goes. So what are maybe some of those traditional higher ed norms that SFBU has chosen to move away from?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Nicole. So to be clear, SFBU was sort of born out of a parent institution, which was Northwest Polytechnic University, which has been around for about 40 years and had a campus just 1 mile down the road from where we currently sit. And then around 2021, coming out of the pandemic, there was a massive rebrand from NPU, which was a polytechnic in nature, to SFBU, which is aspiring to be more of a comprehensive university. So new campus, new name, new brands, new president, new strategic plan, new vice presidents. And so some of the decisions that we're carrying forward, so everything was examined. Everything that NPU was doing was examined when SFBU was born, and everything that traditional higher ed had done for hundreds of years was also examined. So some of the decisions that we made were already made, and we validated, and some were not. So the biggest one, of topical interest is probably tenure. NPU did not have faculty tenure, and SFBU has carried forward that tradition. We have a very lean faculty governance model, very agile, able to make decisions really turn on a dime. And I like to think of us as a speedboat, in a sea of ocean liners that just can't possibly change course as quickly as we can. Our curriculum development process, as a result, is also extremely rapid, and we're able to conceive and stand up courses, in weeks and months rather than in months and years. Course scheduling. We have very student-centric course scheduling instead of faculty-centric course scheduling. We teach classes year-round. We teach classes 6 days a week on Saturdays, evenings, online, hybrid, all of the modalities that students want and enjoy. And then we've kind of pivoted away from some things that typical universities have, like athletics and Greek life. And, a lot of those things don't necessarily serve students very well. And we're choosing to focus on some of the academic things and some of the academic experiences that students have.
I love this. And we will talk more about your lean structure, because that's, I think, is really, for people listening, this is important surrounding why you guys get to do the things that you do. I really do think your lean structure kind of leans into that. But real quick, before we move into the lean structure, how do you instill that challenger mindset across your entire institution? You have it. Ansar has it. I know a couple other people that work within your institution that have that kind of same vision. How do you keep that going? How do you continue to foster that mindset?
Yeah. So, now you're talking about culture and institutional culture. And, I started, like I said, about a year ago. And pretty much, I would say 50 to 70% of my total time expenditure here has been on hiring. So all of the faculty who work here now, I hired within the last 11 months, and pretty much most of the staff in academic affairs. So everybody in my piece of the organization, I got to hire. And so it starts there, right? If you're trying to change culture, from the very beginning, we're looking for people who there's a mild disgruntlement with higher ed, right? Like if you talk to a lot of the vice presidents here who have been in similar situations to me, where they get to kind of reshape their staff, they are looking for folks who are intentionally a little bit upset at higher ed and the experience that they've had, and actively want to do something different that will help serve students. So obviously, the challenger brand mentality starts at the top. Our president, Nick Ladani, speaks about this openly on podcasts and in articles he writes for Forbes. I had him come in on Friday and have a discussion with the faculty at a session that Ansar was hosting. And he talked a lot about the things that, we've already talked about this morning a little bit. So that messaging is persistent, pervasive, and pretty well unified throughout the organization. It's frequent at every opportunity. We're going to have an all staff meeting here in April, and this will definitely be mentioned because there's so many new people joining the organization every week, every day. So we keep on message, and we're intentionally looking for folks who have had careers in higher ed and are maybe not a little disenchanted with the experiences that they've had and seen.
I got goosebumps when you said that you hire people who are a little bit upset with higher ed, because I think that that's a perfect way to describe it. I used to think back when I first started in higher ed, like, we're doing really great work. We have open access and we're so great, right? And I lived in that disillusioned world for a long time of, we're awesome because we're giving people a seat at the table. And then as I started to dig in a little bit more, I was like, we're not giving them a fork. The table's too tall. Their chair is too short. Like, I started, but you have to make that switch, right? Like no one can make you feel that. It's kind of something personally you have to go through. So I love that that's kind of part of the hiring process is we need people who understand that the system just isn't working quite right and are who still love higher ed. I love higher ed and I'm critical of it. And I feel bad that I'm critical of it, but it's because I love it so much, right? It's like your kid. You want your kid to succeed, so you give them tough love because you don't want them thinking that they're perfect and awesome and then send them into the world for them to fail.
Exactly right. A little bit disillusioned, a little bit disgruntled. Because if you're completely disgruntled, then go sell real estate or do
Yeah,
something
move to
else.
a different career. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love your analogy about a seat at the table, and carrying it further. After, everybody's at the table and only 50% of you will eat. Only 50% of you will have food.
Only
Uh,
50. Yeah.
there's only enough food for half of you at the table. And I do think, listen, I don't think that higher ed is a bad enterprise. Like, again, I've been in traditional higher ed for 26 years, my whole career. And I also love higher ed. And I believe that a more educated world is the world I want to live in, a more educated society. Access. I think the work happening, especially at community colleges, is to be trumpeted, right? Like, this is champion. This is incredible stuff. But I think that most of traditional higher ed is talking about how innovative it is and how, open up any strategic plan for any university. And you're going to see the words innovation, disruption. You're going to see all these words. And really what they're talking about is slightly incremental change. I think if you look at presidential searches, the folks who are winning these presidents' jobs right now are the least threatening candidate. The candidate that will keep the institution chugging along and the status quo, moving forward. And that's not what higher ed needs right now. Like, we don't believe that here.
Totally. And I think I told Ansar, like, we'll have to have you guys back on in a year from now because I think that you guys have built such a solid foundation that there's no way that you don't just explode with the foundation that you guys have set. So many people are trying to repair. You guys built new and didn't just do those small incremental changes. You did some mass overhauls. So one thing that really stands out is how quickly you guys can move. And we touched on this a little bit before, but anyone that I talk to at SFBU is just talking about the various initiatives that are going on. It's pretty wild. I think a lot of people talk about initiatives. A lot of initiatives die on the vine because they never get through governance, right? You guys have initiatives that are in progress, almost completed and out the door. So what enables that kind of agility?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it is our lean governance structure. It's very flat. If you look at the org chart, I don't have deans and associate VPs and committees, and it's look. I've got 3 departments right now. I've got business, computer science, and psychology. We're developing psychology kind of as our third curricular area. And there are more to come on deck. We're moving into bioinformatics and digital design and public health. But right now, I've got kind of a chair of each one of those areas, and I meet with them weekly in a group, and we decide things, and then we do them. And so, and they communicate with their faculty, which are largely adjuncts, but there are a few. We have some postdocs, but we talk about it together. And we've got the right brains around the table at that moment, and decisions are made, and then we execute almost immediately. And I was not used to that, and I'll give you some examples. I'm meeting with the decision makers of the faculty, and we called our librarian in, and she said about 75% of the textbooks that we're using are available through our database subscriptions. So we're already at 75%. Available through the library for free. And I said, what would it take to get to the other 25%? And she said, look, we'll figure it out. And so in that meeting, we decided in fall of 25, next semester, there will be 0 cost textbooks at SFBU. And, the faculty were like, of course we should do this. And that was on a Friday. And then on a Monday, I go running around I live across the street. I go running around the campus in the morning. And our big electronic billboard, facing the street said, fall 25, no cost textbooks. So the
Fast.
yeah, so we made a decision on a Friday as a group, and then Monday it's on the billboard, and we're there. We found textbooks for every class we're going to offer in the fall, and then we move. I feel like traditional higher ed, there would have to be a curriculum committee that would study this, and issues of academic freedom. You can't tell me what book to use or not use, in what format. Students must have the book, and it would be sent to committee where it would be studied for 2 years. A report would be written, and the students who were currently in the classrooms would have already graduated by the time a no decision was
Yeah.
made. So just one example of how quickly we can move.
That's perfect. And I'm glad that you mentioned committees too, because I mean, that's exactly what would have happened, right? Is it would go to a committee, they talk about it, then they'd make some sort of decision, and then they would start exploring vendors, right? So now they're 2 years with committee work. Now they're looking at vendors. That adds another year. I mean, the amount of layers that we as an industry put on top of ourselves.
He will cycle on and off that committee, so you'd have new faculty 2 years later. Um, yeah, I mean, I've been in that world. I know it. I understand it, and I do value shared governance. Like, I do think I don't want to sit here and be an autocrat and make all the decisions myself. And I will. None of us, me, Anzar, the president, none of us will claim we're the smartest kids in the room. Faculty bring a tremendous expertise to the table, and we want to use their expertise in a way that is appropriate. And we won't make decisions without them here, right? I would never have made that decision if I wasn't having that conversation with faculty. But faculty aren't trained in committee work, right? Like, you go to school and you become an expert in music or art history or whatever your discipline is. And then you spend a decent percentage of your time in committee work. And I don't understand how that serves students. It serves faculty because faculty are making decisions that impact faculty, but it doesn't always serve students.
Absolutely.
Textbooks serve students.
Totally. Yeah. And getting that as quickly as possible serves students. It's interesting too, because I feel like a lot of faculty are bogged down by committees, and so they don't have the time to actually be in the classroom like we need them to, right? Because they have all these committees. But then if we talk about removing committees, the other side of that is like, no, 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 no. Faculty need to have a voice in it, right? And so it's balancing. Faculty have a voice, but we don't need to overcommittee everything, because I feel like right now we live on both sides. Faculty are upset about the amount of committee work they have, but they also don't want to lose their voice. So I'm curious, if people are listening to this, how do you guys balance like thoughtful decision making, which in higher ed is often viewed as a committee, right? We say committee is thoughtful decision making. How do you guys balance that speed, the ability to quickly make a decision
Right.
with that thoughtful decision making?
Yeah, it's a great question. We move really quickly, Nicole, and we're going to make some mistakes, and that has to be okay, right? I think intelligent failure is a thing, and if we make a mistake, we're doing the best we can, and right now we have our foot on the gas. We really don't, we're valuing agility and nimbleness. And we will make mistakes. We will decide to do something, and we will learn that quickly, and we will pivot to a new structure. And every day here we're learning, right? Like, every day we're making decisions that are big, and it's impossible to comprehend all of the downstream effects of those decisions. But once we do, we can quickly pivot to a better pathway. So we hire really smart people. We put them around the table. We empower them to do great work, and there's gonna be some bumps here along the way, just like any startup, right? If you go right down the road, and there's probably in Fremont, California, 50 companies that are being founded every day, and they're going to do things they wish they hadn't have done, or they didn't know what they didn't know. And that's our attitude right here. There's a lot of psychological safety. It's okay to do something that doesn't work out. And we just keep moving forward.
love that, like, you just accept that you can make a mistake. And I think that so many times we think if we have a committee and we have this long process, then we're safeguarding ourselves from mistakes. But I can think of so many instances in higher ed where we still had the committee work, still took us years, and in the end, it was not the right decision, right? Like, I can think of a project where it took us years to figure out, hey, we want this program to be online textbooks. We really think our students are going to enjoy online textbooks. So years and years of implementation, figuring out vendors, the logistics, all of that, only to find 6 months in, our students wanted physical textbooks. They didn't want it. So we think that we're not going to make errors by these committees, but we still can't anticipate exactly what the students need. So it seems like you guys are just have embraced. We might make a mistake here or there or quickly adapt. Just as quickly as we made that decision, we can unmake that decision and move in a different way.
For sure, for sure. One very quick example, there's a professor who teaches here, Ahmed Banafa. He also works at San Jose State, very large, very tech-savvy, forward-leaning institution, just 20 miles down the road. And he was saying, we need a class in blockchain, right? When blockchain started exploding, like, we need a class in blockchain, we need a class in blockchain. It went to committee for 2 years, at San Jose State, and we had the class the next semester. We were, I think, probably one of the first institutions in the United States to teach a class in blockchain, in AI prompt engineering, all this stuff. We can see it happen in the world, and we have faculty here who are the ones doing it in the real world, and we can bring it right to our students.
I love it. Now, so we've talked about lean and just your guys' agility and all those things, but I want to kind of bring this back to the audience because I do know that underneath all of this, there are some core pillars that really guide the work you do. So I think we've painted this picture of you guys being able to move quickly, and to some people that might feel uncomfortable, or it might feel like you guys are throwing spaghetti at the wall, but you're not, because underneath it there are, maybe not underneath, it's probably not great, on top of it is, let's say, 6 pillars that really guide your work. Can you walk us through what those pillars are?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So you framed it beautifully. We are not throwing spaghetti at the wall. There is a strategic plan that we're operating under, and that strategic plan really rests on 6 fundamental foundational elements. And if you can picture a hexagon, right, with the student at the center of the hexagon, we surround the student with these 6 pillars. And so, in no particular order, I'll put academics first because that's my area. But academics is just one of 6 things that we feel it's important for our students to have. Most institutions would put academics right in the middle, right? Like the faculty in the center of the model. So academics, life literacy, wellness, multiple meaningful relationships, financial support, and career readiness. These are the 6 things that we say we will wrap around the student to make sure that when they graduate, they've been successful. And our very early data would suggest that it is working. We're having retention rates, both grad and undergrad, averaging above 90% from fall to fall. And in some degrees, granted some smaller ends, 100%. So the data is working. The data would suggest that we're on the right path.
That's incredible. That's incredible to hear those retention rates, because so many people look at their peer institutions and they think, we're on par with our peers. They're at 50%. We're at 50%. We're doing great. And I think that goes back to your challenger mindset of, we're trying to do things a little bit differently. We're not going to be comfortable in that 50% space. We want better.
And these are at-risk students. These are not, we're not highly selective. We are pretty much an access institution. And so these are first generation, Pell eligible, in some case, English as a second language, international students. These are truly at-risk students, and our retention fall to fall is up in the 90s.
Fascinating. It just shows, like, do the right things, Do the right things for your students. I even love how your pillars are not, horizontal. I love that your pillars are surrounding the students because I've never seen any pillars described in that way. I have always seen them on strategic plans as
Columns.
columns,
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah. And our graphic actually has a little student with an SFBU sweatshirt right in the middle, just to remind everybody.
I love it. I love it. So how do these pillars shape high level strategy, operation, your day to day? How do these pillars kind of carry out with the decisions you make?
Yeah. So, lots of ways. I'll just some examples. Under wellness, we have unlimited mental health support for our students. We know that this is an at-risk population, that the world is changing, that students' mental health is very often a barrier for them to complete college. And so, not just giving them 6 visits to the counseling center and then say go out and use your insurance. We have 2 full-time staff psychologists, and students can see them as much as they want, as often as they need to. We have wellness workshops for students on a regular basis. We have field trips for them. We are constantly kind of looking in and checking in on their mental health. We're moving into the AI space for some of this, and actually discussing internally kind of like an AI companion for the students, especially for neurodivergent students. We're finding that this generation prefers talking. They're very comfortable talking to chatbots, whereas my generation, I press 0 to speak to a representative when I call my insurance company. I don't want
Totally.
the automated person at the bank. Students really prefer it, and it's available to them 24/7, 2 in the morning on their phone, any language you wish. It's not judging them. It doesn't care what color their skin is or where they went to high school or how much money they have, and they can really divulge a lot. And we're getting analytics on the back end from this. So right now we're just using that technology in the academic space. We've fed the entirety of our general education to these AI tutors that are available to students. And it's Socratic. It just asks them questions. It doesn't give them answers like ChatGPT. And we're also exploring that, in the wellness space and kind of in the holistic space. Do you have financial problems? We can help, like that kind of thing. Life literacy, we don't have traditional residence halls here. We have a lot of condos that surround the university with kitchens, and even if first time in college students, they go there and they have to learn how to budget for their food. They have to learn how to shop, prepare meals, multiple meaningful relationships. We are constantly in contact with students. We have a student activities director, and students here are truly engaged in this. And we want the faculty to be primal in these relationships. We don't want the faculty in committees. We don't want the faculty even doing research, which is, we say teach your classes year round, 6 days a week, and develop relationships with students outside of the classroom. And so, again, this is working. Financial support, I mentioned our tuition is very, very low. And we have, emergency funds for students that are available. And then career readiness, we are trying to leverage Silicon Valley as our classroom. And I was telling the faculty on Friday, please ask me for a bus. Please stop teaching class in the classrooms. Like, please go teach at Google. The Tesla factory is walking distance. We go to the Intel headquarters. We're trying to get our students out of the classroom as much as possible, or bring industry experts into the classroom. We have an alum who's working at NVIDIA. She came back, and taught some classes for us, just guest lectured. So we're really trying to leverage our locations so that when students graduate, they are ready to work for the biggest and the best.
I love this, especially with the students you guys serve. I think something that in higher ed we just don't acknowledge is this like lack of social capital from our students, right? We say go do an internship, but we don't realize that they don't have the connections. maybe, and for most people, their parents may have worked at 7-Eleven or Kohl's, right? And so they wouldn't even necessarily have that parental support of, hey, how do I go get an internship? Do I show up at the door? Do I send an email? Do I call, right? Like, we forget that a lot of our students didn't have someone teaching them about how to manage a budget, how to grocery shop and make sure that you have enough food for the week. Like, we forget all of that stuff. So it sounds like you guys have really figured out how to fill that gap of they've left home, they're now in college. There's all of these things that they really need to be ready to tackle independently that maybe they didn't get at home. And you guys have no problem living in that space where it feels like other people think that that's not, it's like hands off. We're just here to teach them the classroom stuff. That's our job as a college. Nothing feels hands off to you guys. Like,
Right. That's right. Yeah. Especially faculty. Faculty are very quick to say, I come in, I teach. Maybe you understand my lecture. Maybe you don't. I go home. Right. I did my part. I profess. And students are empty vessels into which we pour our content. And it's up to them to digest it and make meaning of it. And it is a privilege for them to kind of learn at my feet while I discuss and pontificate. But our psychology faculty, Kylie Roy, she loves puzzles. She's a puzzler. And so there's always a jigsaw puzzle going on out in the,
so fun.
there's always a gaggle of students surrounding her. Mohammed Akirashida, our computer science professor, loves chess. He's wiped the floor with me a couple of times. But there's, Thursday afternoons, there's a chessboard out there with a clock, and now students are getting passionate about that. And there's just innumerable. Anzar is taking a busload of students into the forest this weekend, to see redwood trees and
That's cool.
this is like, we really mean the multiple meaningful relationships like that, and the faculty are really central to that. If you think back to your college experience and or anybody's, and you reflect on what was really impactful, pretty much a professor is going to come to mind, right? Like, I've learned the most from this person or in this class or with this experience. And imagine having even more access to that person, how much more meaningful it could have been. All of the research is saying, what's the difference between retaining a student and not retaining a student is having more adults on the campus who care about that student. And if that can be the faculty, from my position, even better.
I love it. And I think I always say, like, we just need to simplify things, when we're trying to figure out how to get the sense of belonging, right? How do we get students to feel like they belong? We add all this extra programming to help encourage that. And you guys have just made it so simple, right? I mean, it's not simple, but you've made it appear very simple. Like, care about our students, take the time to engage with them, figure out what they need, and we'll make it happen. We'll get them free textbooks. We will give them emergency cash if they need it. Like, you guys have just figured out. It's so, at the very core level, it's so simple to just put the students at the center, but we're like over initiatived in higher ed. We think all of these new innovations are going to solve the problems. And you guys really have just simplified care about the student. Faculty, be with the students. You don't need to be on committees. You don't need to get wrapped up in this mess. We need you over here where the students need you.
Correct. Yeah.
I love it. Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet is the startup scholars. So we've talked about different ways that the pillars support your guys' decision making, but I want to make sure we can talk about this. So what is the startup scholars, and what are kind of the impacts you're seeing of this?
Yeah. So it's a new program. It's kind of a signature program. Really proud of it. And it's for domestic students. Our previous enrollment was largely international, and this was the first year we've started to shape our enrollment with domestic students, and we're continuing to balance out our enrollment between international and domestic. So it's a program for domestic students that really leans into the location and ethos of Silicon Valley. And so we want students who are passionate entrepreneurs, who are tenacious leaders, who are interpersonally gifted, who are global navigators, tech trendsetters. This is the kind of student that we're trying to attract, who, again, either is being underserved or unserved by traditional higher ed. And so if a student is fortunate enough to be a startup scholar, they get completely free tuition. They get completely free room and board for all 4 years. They are cohorted. They are given a mentor. They're given a computer. And when they graduate, they actually get $10,000 to found a startup that will have a positive social impact. And so we had the first cohort of those startup scholars admitted in fall 24. We're now shaping the class for fall 25. And we put those students in front of the board at our December board meeting. We invited the startup scholars in, and we just said, hey, what are you working on? What's your passion project? And we heard the most amazing things. We heard AI technology in motorcycle helmets, and we heard housing crisis solutions, and we heard gravesite care for loved ones that need gravesite care, and really the things that'll just blow your mind coming out of the mouths of 18-year-olds. And the board, that was probably the most. I don't think the vice presidents and the president even needed to speak to the board. Like, just let the startup scholars hear to tell them what you're working on. And that really encapsulates the mission and ethos of what we're trying to do at SFBU.
That's so amazing because, I mean, when we think about some of the greatest contributions to the world, to society, it all started by someone who was able to imagine or reimagine how something should be, right? When we think about, I'm a big believer that things like imagination has the ability to literally change the world. But at a traditional model, our 18-year-olds, we're not really giving them that space to explore and ideate because they're busy reading their textbooks. They're reading, they're so busy checking off all the items on their syllabus that they don't, if we think like Maslow's hierarchy of needs too, right? They're just responding to all the tasks in front of them and they don't have that opportunity. And I think this is really beautiful because you guys have given them the space to do this. You've really met all of their basic needs and probably even beyond that if we're thinking about Maslow's, to now where they can live in this space of imagining how the world can be a better place and how they can contribute to it. I mean, you guys have taken it from a top level all the way down, and your positivity and showing if you care about people and you pour into people is now being, demonstrated on your students, and now they see if you care about people, you can do good on. So it's this ripple kind of pour down effect of you guys caring, and now your students are also caring and figuring out how they can impact the world. It's
Right.
amazing.
That very John Lennon. But yeah, we are trying to imagine a future in which these types of students with great ideas, with the proper support and proper education, they can really go out and change the world.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome. So now we've talked about startup scholars, free textbooks, mental health. I mean, you guys are doing lots of things. What's next?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much, some of which we're not ready to talk about publicly, but I can share with you, 90 credit degrees, 90 credit undergraduate degrees. We believe that that's an appropriate use of our energy to seek 90 credit undergraduate degrees for students. And you're starting to see some early signs. Kent State last week worked with their accreditor, HLC, to stand up some 90 credit degrees. Middle States has a position on this. We're accredited by WASC. And so we are working with WASC to be one of the first institutions on the West Coast to offer 90 credit baccalaureate degrees. And we believe that if you shave off a third of the degree and trim away a lot of the electives, that students can graduate as prepared, in some cases maybe even more prepared, to hit the job market or go to graduate school or do whatever's next in their career. Lots of European institutions, some very reputable ones like Oxford, they have 3-year degrees and they're no less valuable, and those students are no less successful. Interesting, the 120 credit hour degree was actually originated more about faculty teaching load than about what students need. They take a 30 credit gen ed, and then they take a 60 credit major, and then they take another 30 credits of pretty much anything they want, unless it's an accredited program like teacher education or nursing, or that have additional requirements. But for your typical liberal arts and sciences disciplines and business and so forth, 90 credits, you can get all the content you need into 90 credits. So we're looking at 90 credits. We're looking at more AI options to see how we can bring AI, really fully leverage it and bring it to scale in a way that is even more meaningful to students. We're looking at, for example, graduate degrees that are really leveraging AI and might be available online nationally for very low cost, a couple $1,000s total. That we feel like that would disrupt the industry. And we're bringing a lot of the great curriculum that we have that unfortunately we didn't get to talk about today yet to an asynchronous space. And we're starting to deliver those programs in Asia. I'm headed to Indonesia at the end of May, and we're talking with partners in Vietnam as well as Thailand to see if we could create in-country programs for those students who might not have the opportunity to come to SFBU to get an SFBU education, probably for less than the cost of a plane ticket to the United States. And so if students do have the resources and they want to come, of course, they can come here and finish their degree. But if not, they can take the degree in country, and we'll go to them. We'll bring it to them. So just some of the exciting things that we've got cooking here.
That's amazing. And I'd like literally, if people listening aren't keeping an eye on you guys, I would highly suggest keeping an eye on you guys, because I think there's just so much more to come. I mean, we have done 2 parts on your school now, and we still know that we could probably do 4 episodes total on all of the things that you guys are doing, and that's currently not even looking into the future.
Thanks, Nicole. Keep having us back.
Yeah, no, I will.
We'll keep talking to you. Yeah,
I will. I have one final question for you. What advice would you give to other institutions trying to move faster or think differently?
Yeah. So again, coming out of higher ed, traditional higher ed, both at like I was in the SUNY system, the State University of New York system, and kind of the private sector. The number one thing I would say is really examine your governance and examine every aspect of the governance and ask how it's serving students and how it's serving the institution. And if it is serving students and it's serving the institution, great. Parts of it might be working really well. Parts of it might not. If it takes you longer than 2 years to do anything, it's probably taking too long. There isn't that kind of runway anymore. You're seeing last year you saw 1 school a week close or consolidate, about 50 a year. And I'm reading articles now that are saying that will triple. And so it's time to really examine the governance and do it collaboratively and do it with a process that takes less than 6 months. So that's probably the biggest thing, is trying to get out of your own way and make sure that you can make quick and excellent decisions that are inclusive and serve students. And then the other thing is AI. AI is fundamentally changing the nature of white collar work. And as a result, it has to fundamentally change the nature of the way we're preparing students to enter the world. And so, at SFBU, because we redesigned the entire curriculum, we built AI into it from the beginning. It's not a tack on afterthought. And again, we were very well positioned. The timing of the genesis of our curriculum allowed us to say what important elements must be foundational and fundamental, and AI is one of them. So every single course has AI infused in it, where we tell the students, use AI for this, and use it in this way and use it responsibly. And here's what that looks like. We have the AI tutors. We're partnering with a company called Alma Learning, and they are also kind of startup-y and scrappy, and they're willing to listen to us. And we're creating some really incredible solutions together. They're building avatars of our faculty that are available to the students that can speak any language, available on demand. So that is the future. Just like autonomous cars, if you came here to San Francisco, you'd see taxis with no drivers driving people around. And that we're used to that now. There's a company called Waymo that is driving around San Francisco with no driver. And it's couched as a superior experience, not a novelty. The Waymo car can make decisions faster than any human. It'll never be drunk. It's cheaper. They have beautiful Jaguar SUVs. It's a pretty incredible experience that costs less than Uber. That's the future of transportation. And I think the future of higher ed won't be far behind it. If you can drive a car, you can probably have an AI system that will know everything in the world on a certain subject and be available to students on demand. And so how do we leverage that? And those are the conversations we're having behind closed doors, to make sure that we bring the full weight and power of that to bear at SFBU.
I love it. And I think, there's something that AI can't do, and it's that human connection. And that is where you guys are also leaning hard is faculty, connect with our students, make them feel supported, teach them the things. But we can use AI over here in meaningful ways. And right now, so many people are trying to figure out, is AI a threat? Is it going to take our jobs? And for you guys, you're like, let's embrace it over here, but know that no AI chatbot will ever be able to provide that experience of doing a puzzle with students in the hall, or you know what I mean? Like
It's the multiple meaningful relationships.
taking them to the redwoods. Yeah.
The pillar,
Yep.
right? Your AI will not take you into the redwoods. It will not do a puzzle with you. It can't connect with you on a way that is foundational to our humanity. And that's what the faculty can spend a lot of time doing that because they're great at that. And so, yeah, so those are my two pieces of advice. Governance, make sure that it's serving you and serving students, and AI. Those are if you're not looking at that, you're looking at the wrong things.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Bradley, this has been one of my favorite conversations. I have loved this conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Nicole.
This episode is a gift for the listeners. So I really appreciate all the things you've shared with us, the way that you've kind of presented the situation higher ed is in. It's truly been wonderful. So thank you.
My pleasure, Nicole. Thank you. Thanks for the great work you do. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to EdUp. We'll see you next time.